The affirmative is a survival strategy for disabled people in the debate space who have to constantly advocate for access to these academic spaces, who have to listen to daily microaggressions of narcissism from coaches, from other debaters, from judges, because we dare ask for things that are necessary for our own participation in the activity. The survival strategy is working. We are still here, but we are still reading about access because of grounds where someone tries to spread me out of the debate, because of the way the people will take my cane without asking and pretend to play with it, a weapon, a sword, a golf putter, because of how debate thinks they've solved access, because they finally agreed to put me in a static room at the center of the tournament. Kroger indicates that all the extra time we have to take to sort this shit out trades off with the academic experience we came here to have, which is why the 1AC can create more access to the Academy for Disabled People, which is necessarily important. And Campbell indicates that each instance of microaggression forces us to internalize ableism and become our own oppressors, which is why we need the 1AC to stop feeling like we have to swallow down every microaggression. I'm not going to read the no case debate stuff. This is a very important debate for lots of reasons, but foremost among them is that we rarely get the chance to discuss methodologies for challenging the very real oppressions that affect us as disabled bodies on the daily. I'm talking about us and Weber. The competition here is good for formulating strategies and testing them out against one another. When two revolutionary groups meet together to discuss their strategies, it is vital that we push each other to find the kernels of truth among our scholarship that we can take when we leave this space. Now, I will answer an argument that I expect them to spin out in the block, which is that debate is inherently bad. This is what they're making, the argument that they're making with the Richter evidence, which I expect to be a large portion of the block. We will defend that debate is ultimately good. It allows us the opportunity to travel all over the country, to share our scholarship, to engage in revolutionary conversations with one another. This is one of the best places in the Academy to advance and test scholarship, to make that scholarship matter in the broader Academy. It is only because of debate that I feel comfortable talking about myself as a disabled person. Before debate, I was scared to walk with my cane outside. I was constantly worried about what the world would think about a young person with a physical disability. Before debate, I was filled with fear over the way my neurodivergence affected my interactions with the world. This is why we read the arguments we do in debate, because they give us both survival skills we need to be in a world. They give us both, Dan and I both, the survival skills we need to be in a world that is built for only the temporarily able-bodied. Yes, there is a lot of bad shit that happens here, a lot of it, that is undeniable, but at the end, we have hope for a better debate space. We have hope to remake the physical and social landscapes of the university system. We have hope that can effectuate change not only here in this space, but the change that can spill over into our personal lives, our professional lives, our academic lives. What we get here is bigger than what we give up, which is why we both made the decision, Dan and I, to come back to debate after the horrific experiences that we encountered last year in this space as loud and proud Crips. I think that the Richter evidence is going to flow our way in this debate, because the final conclusion of it is to upset ableist assimilation will bring many others who resigned to hermetically life in opposition to a possible alliance with you. This will function as a permutation argument. We can do the affirmative and also do the negative at the same time, because the Richter evidence provides us solvency for that. I love Zach Richter. I'm glad y'all read into us.
The evidence even talks about alliances with people who are not just Crips.
The evidence talks about alliance with people who are not just Crips, about how we have to love other people. We love ourselves. We love other people. Yes, we even love our abusers, because we know that they will someday join us. We know that they need the education that we are providing, because all bodies are in a state of decomposition. This is a fundamental uniqueness question that the negative has not responded to, that all bodies are in a state of decomposition, which means they are either disabled now or they are becoming disabled in the status quo, which means that the education of the 1AC is necessarily important and a survival strategy not only for us but for all people. It is an inevitability. Now, they say that narcissism and internalized ableism are inevitable things. Even if they win that or a strategy to challenge against it. They don't have a way to resolve it. They only have an inevitability claim that it will continue to happen to us, which is why we must prefer the 1AC Wilson evidence, which is really good on this question. It's probably going to turn a bunch of the evidence that they read at the bottom of the 1NC. We can turn a self-critical lens on ourselves and our projects. We can be critical of other projects. This is all internals to the Wilson evidence. We can remake the physical and social landscapes of the university by foregrounding access. Now, they made a piece of Cohen and Rottenberg evidence that says that inclusion and access politics are necessarily problematic, but we don't prescribe what that access looks like. We don't prescribe the status quo disability studies in notions of access being only one thing, which is why in the 1AC we say that access is not distributed. The part that we don't say in the 1AC that I will say here is that, but it should be. It should be distributed. That is why our politics includes things like the Texas forums, includes things like the challenges to the NDT Section 6 letter, includes things like creating quiet rooms at all of the major tournaments this year, includes things like ensuring that not only competitors who are disabled have a static room at the center of the tournament, but also the coaches who are disabled have a static room at the center of the tournament. All of these are things that we can do through our Wilson evidence, but we must be able to survive in this space first, which is why the 1AC is necessary in order to be able to be a survival strategy for us. Now, I think the Wilson evidence will also turn the Richter evidence, because Richter is speaking of the status quo of debate. The way that debate exists right now is really assimilationist, and totally agree with that, but that is a link to the status quo. It is screwed up for all of us, but it is why that the Act demands a new form of pedagogy. I've also answered this up above about the ways in which I think that Zach would ultimately conclude for us in this debate. Now, in addition to that, the Hughes evidence doesn't take into account that Campbell already assumes that we are ontologically negative in society. That's the Campbell evidence from the 1AC. We have to ask the question of what do we do in the face of that ontological negativity? What do we do in order to overcome it? We think that a politics of hope is necessarily good in order to create an intersectional approach, which is the 1AC Sievers evidence about how we will all someday be disabled, which means we must work together. The blind do not lead the blind. The lame do not want to walk alone. We do not love only our own kind or ourselves. You others are our caregivers, and we can be yours if you let us. That is the Sievers evidence at the bottom of the 1AC, which indicates that we are the intersectional approach of the negative. Also, the Frisch evidence.
The 1NC alternative probably precludes possibility of interdependence.
The 1NC alternative probably precludes the possibility of interdependence, because they say that they foreclose access for some bodies to their alternative. Also, the Frisch evidence, I don't think that there will be a link to this evidence. They say that NeoLib is really bad for disabled people. We totally agree, which is why we remake the physical and social landscapes of the university, which then spills out when we leave this space, because we will all become educators in the rest of the world when we leave this space. Also, I'll defend hope here with a card. Hope is an ethical action that is a precursor to all forms of political change. You can cross-apply the Wilson analysis I did above here as well. Denson in 3. Hope confronts hopelessness. Hopelessness is an ontological need. Hope gives meaning to the struggles to change the world. Hope is grounded in performative practices and struggles. Hope as a form of pedagogy interrogates cynicism, the belief that change is not possible. It helps persons think critically, historically, sociologically. Is critical pedagogy. It exposes pedagogies that produce oppression and injustice. It contributes to an ethical self-consciousness. You can mark the card at self-consciousness.
Okay. Well, I'll probably read the rest of those warrants in the one I got.
Okay. When debate is inherently exclusionary, we read these arguments, we put ourselves on the line. How is it that we can have hope in these types of circumstances when we realize that they won't accept us?
So this is a great conversation, right? Dan and I experienced a ton of exclusion last year, and we had a lot of conversations about whether or not we could have hope to come back to debate. And what we ultimately decided is what we get from debate is bigger than what we give up. Yes, there's violence here. Yes, there's exclusion here. But what we get is we get a chance to speak truth to power in round after round. We get a chance, like you got a chance to do last tournament, to speak to Northwestern NV. we get a chance to speak to Michigan AP to tell them about the ways in which they are inherently ableist, so that they will understand that as they become disabled bodies over the course of their life, that they necessarily need the education that we're spinning.
So they care about the education because they will become disabled.
They don't care about the education. We care about the education.
But that's why they should care, right? Because
That's why they should care, is the fundamental uniqueness question of the act, is this question of bodies in decomposition.
Okay, then when do they start caring about disabled bodies for disabled bodies' sake?
Oh, I don't know that they start caring about disabled bodies for disabled bodies' sake until they become disabled.
Okay, so you're saying that's inevitable?
That's inevitable that they
In
will.
the 1AC, okay.
Yeah.
How do you, so we don't have, so you're talking about the liberal inclusion because we're welcoming disabled bodies. So does that mean that ableist oppression is always inherent with the 1AC until people become disabled?
Well, no, what I think you're missing with the liberal inclusion, and I'm sorry I wasn't very good at this in my speech, but the liberal inclusion argument that I think you're getting at is that we remake the physical and social landscapes of the university. So fundamentally, the 1AC methodology that Joe is voting for is a remaking of those spaces, which means that those spaces won't be the same sort of liberal inclusion that's status quo.
How do you remake these spaces? Like, what changes in these spaces?
So I gave some examples of that, right? Like the Texas Forum that we held last year, the NDT Section 6 stuff that we did. So the NDT no longer has this like reasonable accommodation clause as part of it, right? Also instances like the quiet rooms that we have helped set up all year, that you all have helped set up too. I mean, like this is stuff we've both done together. And you all helped us with the NDT stuff as well. So those are all forms of us actualizing our methodology in the real world.
Like, these are little changes, but what are the actual changes to the university that allow for these types of access to be here in the first place, that allow for like a broader form of access?
So this is our spill out claim, right? This is the claim that we are all destined to become leaders in our communities. Us, you, Michigan AP, Northwestern MD, we're all destined to become leaders. And if we have a better understanding of disability consciousness, then we can remake these structures as we become leaders in them.
Okay, what about people who aren't leaders? I know there's a lot of disabled people that are not capable of that and don't want to be leaders. What does that
Leaders
mean?
doesn't have to mean people in charge. Like
Leaders
we have a
doesn't have to
broader
be people in
definition.
charge.
What
We
does
have
it
a
mean?
much broader definition.
Like people involved in their communities.
Yeah, like we will all